Chapter 362. Several figures stopped upon hearing the voice and stayed on the ice surface. Luo Qingtian's voice came from the ice again. Step back. The Daluo sect disciples didn't dare to hesitate anymore and quickly returned to the shore. Yu Qianqiu looked at the ice throne below from the top of the ice dragon. He knew that it was difficult to trap an expert with such cultivation, but he could step on the Daluo sect leader today. Even if he lost later, it would be a glorious defeat. The eyes of the spectators on both sides of the river were also focused on the place where Luo Qingtian was trapped. Ah! A dull sound came from below the ice dragon, followed by a creaking sound. Cracks began to appear on the ice throne below, destroying the beauty of the entire ice dragon. The cracks began to spread to the body of the ice dragon. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the entire ice surface and both sides of the river trembled. The base of the ice dragon exploded instantly, and a figure shot out from below. The power of this explosion was extremely great. In order to escape, Luo Qingtian resisted the heavy pressure and used all his cultivation to make the explosion. The power could be imagined. Huge ice pieces shot out in all directions, and the onlookers on both sides of the river suddenly scattered. Those with low cultivation were already scared to the point that their faces turned pale. Under such power, not to mention the people, even the houses on both sides would be destroyed in an instant. At this moment, Dongfang Cheng, Ao and Xiao Wuyuan tacitly flashed and stood by the riverside. At the same time, they pushed out their palms with great cultivation. A strong airflow rolled out and instantly pushed countless huge ice pieces to the river surface, saving many people and shops here. After this action, the two of them looked at each other. It was not that they really had a tacit understanding, but on this Hat Island, there were two shops and disciples at the same time, so they naturally had to protect them. On the other side of the river, the Wu family would take action. The surface of the frozen river was full of holes because of the exploding ice cubes. Under the ice throne, there was an ice pit at the place where Luo Qingtian escaped. After the huge ice dragon lost its base, it was about to collapse. Who knew that the bottom of the ice dragon just happened to correspond to the ice pit and was stuck there? Surprisingly, it was still standing on the ice river. However, the ice dragon was already shorter, and its body was covered in cracks. It could collapse at any time. Luo Qingtian stood on the ice surface dozens of meters away and looked up. His white eyebrows trembled as he laughed wildly. What a great Yu Qianqiu! You really live up to your reputation. How many years has it been since I took over the exalted Immortal sect? This is the first time someone has forced me into such a sorry state. This old man has finally seen the world today. My son dying in your hands is not an injustice. Haha. It had been a long time since he had a free fight. Who would have thought that he would be able to have a good fight with a junior today? Yu Qianqiu, do you still dare to fight? The voice spread out in all directions. There's something wrong with this old thing's brain. He's speaking incoherently. You're the one at a disadvantage. I should be the one asking this question. Yu Qianqiu stood on the shorter ice dragon and spat out two words in a sonorous voice, I'll accompany you. As the saying goes, the livelier a place is, the more attractive it is. Once you look, there will be something interesting to watch, and the people who have dispersed will return to the shore without fear of death. Sword, come. Luo Qingtian stretched out his hand towards the shore and shouted. The guard who was carrying his sword on the shore immediately held the sword with both hands. Luo Qingtian formed a claw with his hand, and with a clang, the sword was unsheathed and quickly shot into his hand. Xiao Wuyuan glanced at Dongfang Cheng, Ao beside him and said, the sword of the exalted Immortal sect masters is a high-grade offensive Dharma treasure. If Luo Qingtian pulls out the sword, I'm afraid Yu Qianqiu will be in danger. Dongfang Cheng, Ao looked straight ahead and said, you and Yu Qianqiu call each other brothers. If you help, I promise I won't say anything. Although one of them was a righteous and the other a demonic, they often met on different occasions and did not get along well with each other. Xiao Wuyuan rolled his eyes and stopped talking. He was too lazy to find trouble for himself. Luo Qingtian's sharp eyes under his white eyebrows glanced at the clear sword body with pity. Instantly, he became full of battle intent and laughed loudly. I thought it was enough to deal with a junior empty-handed. I didn't expect you, Yu Qianqiu, to have cultivated such a mysterious spell that you can actually force me to pull out this sword. The ice dragon under Yu Qianqiu's feet was not evenly distributed, and there were more and more cracks. It could fall at any time, but Luo Qingtian always had endless things to say. Yu Qianqiu said angrily, "Old man, you talk too much nonsense. Are you going to fight or not? If not, I'm going back to sleep." Luo Qingtian was speechless and stunned. This was the first time someone dared to talk to him, the exalted immortal sect master, like this. Despite Luo Qingtian's noble status, many people in the crowd couldn't help but laugh out loud. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other with a strange expression. The four family heads of the four major families were full of admiration. On Ziyi's pretty face, there was already a sweet smile. She was looking at the man on top of the ice dragon with admiration. Luo Qingtian was immediately angered by this sentence. He shouted, "Ignorant junior, how dare you!" The long sword in his hand slashed out a sword energy. As the sword edge slashed out, it formed a crescent silver-white cold light and shot out quickly. Bang! Ice shards splashed everywhere. The sword energy directly cut the ice dragon in half, and the upper half fell down. Yu Qianqiu waved his sleeves and threw out a green flying sword. He flipped over and jumped up from the ice dragon, landing on the flying sword. As soon as his feet landed, there was a whistling sound, and a sharp sword energy rushed towards him. At the same time, the ice dragon that was cut in half finally collapsed. Yu Qianqiu rode his sword and dodged quickly. The sword energy brushed past him, stirring up a strong wind and flew into the sky. Luo Qingtian's face was gloomy. The sword in his hand slashed dozens of times, and the sword energy immediately formed a sword net that covered the sky. The people who were worried about Yu Qianqiu changed their expressions. Ziyi had a piece of purple-black bamboo in her hand. She was ready to teleport to help at any time. Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes. The distance was too close, and it was too difficult to get through the gaps in the sword net. Moreover, the sword net was too wide. With his speed, it would be equally difficult to escape. He thought for a moment, then turned around and rode his sword straight into the sky. The sword energy that formed a net chased after him. In the blink of an eye, after a few hundred meters, Yu Qianqiu flew backward and successfully passed through the expanding sword energy net. How could he always be suppressed by others and not fight back? If he didn't make a name for himself today, then when would he fight? Yu Qianqiu's eyes were cold. He shouted, "Hi," and opened his arms, as if he was summoning something between heaven and earth. The group of people below was glad that he was out of danger. When they saw him doing this again, they were wondering what he was going to do. Suddenly, their expressions changed. In an instant, the sky darkened. The water rippled in the sky, and the range was a few hundred meters. It was right above Yu Qianqiu's head. Yu Qianqiu opened his arms and stared down fiercely. Ah! This! What is going on? There was a cry of surprise from below. A lake actually appeared in the sky out of nowhere. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other and said in surprise, "Water spell." Ziyi's eyes sparkled. She felt that it was a worthwhile trip to see such a mysterious spell. The people from the four major families all opened their mouths and looked at the sky in disbelief. "Hi!" Yu Qianqiu shouted again. He raised his arms in the air and turned. A large area of water in the air gradually rotated. It rotated faster and faster, like a tornado in the air. The momentum was really amazing. Now, he finally understood what his master had said. He could control the source of heaven and earth, so it was indeed easier for him to use some techniques. Otherwise, with his own cultivation, he would not be able to withstand such a large pool of water in the air, let alone control it. Luo Qingtian looked at the sky, and his pupils shrank. He also didn't understand what Yu Qianqiu was going to do. He couldn't drown himself with a pool of water, right? Go. Yu Qianqiu pointed his finger at Luo Qingtian below. The water whirlwind above his head immediately shot out water arrows. When they passed by Yu Qianqiu, they immediately turned into ice thorns with cold light, whistling down. Oh my God! What kind of spell is this? Someone below exclaimed. Dozens of ice thorns flew over rapidly. Luo Qingtian did not care about these things. He was afraid that Yu Qianqiu had made such a big commotion, so he should not only have these tricks up his sleeves. He dodged it immediately. Tut, tut, tut. Dozens of ice thorns pierced deep into the ice, and some of them were smashed into pieces. However, what followed was not just dozens of ice thorns, but hundreds of them. Luo Qingtian shouted, "Is this all you've got?" He didn't dodge anymore. The long sword in his hand stirred up sharp sword qi in the air. In an instant, ice chips flew everywhere, and they were reflected by the sunlight into a colorful and dazzling scene. Yu Qianqiu seemed to be addicted to it. The ice thorns flew wildly, as if he wouldn't be satisfied until he squandered the pool of water above his head. Indeed, no matter how much water there was, it couldn't be squandered like this. Everyone didn't understand why he was doing such a useless thing. He really couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtian. Looking around, the sky above the river was shrouded by the enchanting colors of the ice dust and sunlight, and the sound of the sword qi breaking the ice was endless. The water in the sky was exhausted, and with the last wave of ice thorns, hundreds of green flying swords suddenly appeared around Yu Qianqiu, protecting him as he rotated like a cone. He carried the flying swords and followed the last wave of ice thorns, shooting towards Luo Qingtian below. Everyone immediately realized that the previous big movement was just a cover-up. It seemed that the final killer move was still on this weird flying sword. The Daluo sect disciples were afraid that the sect leader would be blinded by the ice dust and suffer losses. One of them exclaimed, "Be careful, sect leader, it's a trap." As soon as he said that, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan glared at that person, and that person immediately shut up. Luo Qingtian was alert when he heard that. He vaguely saw a green shadow shooting towards him from the sky, and immediately thought of the terrifying green fire. He kept his long sword and quickly dodged. But it seemed a little late. "I didn't manage to blow you up last time, so I have to let you have a taste of it this time." Yu Qianqiu smiled sinisterly and rushed into the ice dust with the flying sword. Bang, bang, bang. The green fire flying sword immediately exploded into a sea of green fire. The green fire spread, and the ice dust on the river immediately dissipated. Luo Qingtian's speed was really fast. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the sea of green fire and flashed into the air. However, his appearance had changed drastically. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in rags. His coat was burnt, his shoes and trousers were gone, and the few rags on his body were also burnt black. His hair was burnt short, especially that pair of beautiful white eyebrows. It was such a pity. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu did not intend to harm the innocent. There were still many people on both sides of the river watching against the high temperature. However, Luo Qingtian's appearance in the air almost made everyone's jaws drop. Was this still the Daluo sect leader with an extraordinary aura? "Yu Qianqiu, how dare you trick me?" Luo Qingtian shouted furiously in the air. F***ck. You still managed to escape like this? Yu Qianqiu looked at the sky in shock. Fortunately, he still had a backup plan, so there was still a way out. The sea of fire quickly converged into his body. Without saying anything, he turned around and dove into the melted river. This was his backup plan to save his life. He did not understand why Luo Qingtian could escape from the sea of fire unscathed. It was because he did not hear it when he dove down. If Luo Qingtian was not reminded by his disciples, he would have suffered a great loss. Chapter 363. After Yu Qianqiu went into the water for a few meters, he knew that he was in trouble and immediately fled in panic. Although the power of the green fire was great, the time it appeared was too short. Only the top few meters of the frozen river had melted, and the bottom was still solid ice. It could only be blamed that the environment of this era was too good. There was no pollution, and the water was as clean as anything. It could be seen clearly at the depth of a few meters. In addition, with the ice at the bottom of the water as a foil, every move of Yu Qianqiu underwater was seen by Luo Qingtian, who was above. This made Luo Qingtian feel strange. Why was he able to see that brat without using his divine sense? Luo Qingtian was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. He chuckled and chased after Yu Qianqiu in his ragged clothes. He quickly blocked Yu Qianqiu's path and held his sword high with both hands. The sword in his hand turned into a huge sword shadow and fiercely slashed toward the river. Bang! There was a loud sound. The river was slashed by a white chain, and a water curtain that was hundreds of meters long and tens of meters high exploded. The people on the shore couldn't see the situation at the bottom of the river because of the different angle. When they saw Luo Qingtian's crazy action, they were all confused. The sound transmission effect in the water was not bad. It made Yu Qianqiu dizzy. The huge undercurrent that surged from the bottom of the river immediately rolled him back. He didn't think much and retreated more than 10 meters. His body lit up with green fire, and he directly turned into ice and drilled into the layer of ice. Luo Qingtian chased after him again and was stunned again. There was a green lantern-like ball of light in the layer of ice below. It was really eye-catching. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Yu Qianqiu, let's see where you can escape to this time." He ran to the front and raised a huge sword shadow to slash down. When the water splashed down, Luo Qingtian actually drilled into the water along with the splashes. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Qiu Wuyuan rose into the air at the same time. When they saw the big green lantern at the bottom of the river, they immediately understood everything. The two of them looked at each other and cursed in their hearts. What was the difference between this brat and burying his head in the sand? There was a huge wave on the surface of the river, and a layer of ice as wide as the river emerged from the bottom of the river. It turned out that Luo Qingtian had moved the ice that was stuck to the bottom of the river. The buoyancy of the ice layer was great, and it immediately floated when it was removed from the bottom of the river. In the big ice that was 100 meters in length and width, there was a shining green shadow swimming around. They didn't need to guess to know that it was Yu Qianqiu. Luo Qingtian was deliberately making a fool of Yu Qianqiu. He wanted to use this method to regain some face. The shining green light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if Qianqiu felt. Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu suddenly realized that the ice, and you had Yu Qianqiu. The flickering cyan light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if it had sensed the arrival of danger. Just now, when the ice was shaking, Yu Qianqiu had felt that it was strange. He had accidentally discovered that he could vaguely see the sun in the sky. It was impossible for this to happen underwater. His heart suddenly sank, and he felt that something was wrong. The green fire quickly disappeared, and he immediately realized that the whole space of the ice layer was bright. Needless to say, with the basic knowledge from his previous life, he immediately judged that the ice layer had surfaced. The word danger immediately appeared in his mind. Luo Qingtian saw that the green light in the ice disappeared, and he paused for a moment. He immediately waved the huge sword shadow without hesitation, and slashed at the place where the light was. Suddenly, a green flame broke through the ice layer and burned fiercely. The huge sword shadow was a shadow formed by sword chi, so it was not afraid of the green fire. It immediately broke through the green fire, and with a loud bang, it directly cut the big ice layer with a radius of 100 meters into two. The people who were concerned about Yu Qianqiu immediately turned pale. They didn't know what happened to him. Ze bit her lips tightly. She firmly believed that Elder Bai's disciple would definitely not get into trouble so easily. Luo Qingtian retracted his sword chi, held the sword, and stood steadily on the shaking ice layer. His pair of sharp eyes looked around. Before confirming that Yu Qianqiu was dead, he didn't dare to release his divine sense to scan again. He didn't know what strange method Yu Qianqiu used to damage his divine sense. That feeling was simply unforgettable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been frozen by Yu Qianqiu. At this moment, in the shaking ice layer, a figure dragged two black shadows and shot out from not far in front of Luo Qingtian. At some point, Yu Qianqiu had pulled out two strange-looking sabers. The sabers were 2 meters long and half a meter wide. They were black and shiny, and they didn't look like anything out of place. Not many people would be able to tell what style they were. Yu Qianqiu didn't care what style it was, as long as it was convenient to use. These two swords were suppressed by him using black fire. They imitated the style of the machetes used in his previous life, but they were enlarged a lot. However, the grip area wasn't enlarged, so it looked a little out of place. This sword was taken from the Netherworld Fire Sea. I don't believe it's useless. Yu Qianqiu roared in his heart. He jumped down from the sky and slashed at Luo Qingtian with the machetes in his hands. Such a big sword made Luo Qingtian slightly stunned. He flipped his hand and a silver-white sword chi shot out, attacking the two big swords that were slashing at him. Swoosh, swoosh. The two big black swords cut through the sword chi as if they were cutting a piece of paper. Luo Qingtian and Yu Qianqiu were stunned. The former was shocked, and the latter didn't know that the black fire swords could cut through the sword chi. According to common sense, if it could block the sword chi of a master without being damaged, it was already a good treasure. They had never seen such a situation before. In fact, Yu Qianqiu didn't know how powerful the black fire was. Just think about it, after the burning black smoke formed a wind blade, it could break through the protective aura and easily cut through the dark steel, let alone the big swords formed by the black fire itself. Good swords. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan exclaimed immediately. The people watching the battle were amazed. They didn't expect that there was such a magic weapon in this world that could cut through the sword chi of a master as easily as cutting a piece of paper. Greed appeared in many people's eyes. The 4 patriarchs of the 4 major families exchanged glances. The 4 of them were favored by Bai Changchun, and each of them was rewarded with a low-grade spiritual treasure. Naturally, they thought that the strange swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands were good treasures given by Bai Changchun. After Luo Qingtian recovered from the shock, he immediately waved his sword to block the swords. Ding! The 2 big black machetes showed their power again. They directly cut the sword in Luo Qingtian's hands into 3 pieces. It was still effortless. Luo Qingtian was shocked. The swords were already in front of him, and he quickly dodged more than 10 meters away. He looked at the sword hilt in his hand and was speechless. This was the high-grade offensive magic weapon passed down by the Daluo sex patriarch. How could it be so easily chopped off by someone with a knife? He really couldn't believe it. The sword of the Daluo sex patriarch was also famous in the cultivation world. Anyone with a little common sense would know what kind of treasure it was. Now it was cut by someone just like that? The onlookers were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Even Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan were dumbfounded. Only the 4 patriarchs showed an expression as if they had expected it. Everyone looked at the 2 strange but inconspicuous big swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands and immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be a legendary spiritual treasure? Otherwise, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he easily destroy a high-grade magic weapon? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were burning. Chapter 364. Don't run. Watch my blade. As soon as Luo Qingtian dodged, Yu Qianqiu chased after him like a crab with 2 big pincers. Once he got close, he raised his blade and slashed. When the former came back to his senses, he was already ashamed and resentful. The treasure passed down by Daluo sect's previous leaders was actually destroyed in his hands. How could he not feel ashamed and resentful? Of course, the most important thing at the moment was to avoid Yu Qianqiu's broadsword. This strange broadsword could even cut high-grade treasures like cutting vegetables, let alone a person. Luo Qingtian's speed was needless to say. However, close combat was also Yu Qianqiu's forte. The experience he had accumulated from risking his life in his previous life was not something that could be easily forgotten. Otherwise, he would not have gotten 2 machetes. For a moment, a spectacular scene appeared on the ice surface. Daluo sect's leader's figure was like a phantom, moving between the two broadswords. On the other hand, Yu Qianzhou was a brave man who was fearless. He wanted to kill Luo Qingtian with the machete in his hands. He didn't give Luo Qingtian any chance to stop and counterattack. His skill with the machete was so skillful that it made people gasp in amazement. He believed that even the martial arts masters in the secular world were no better than him. The two of them were entangled just like that. The spectators were dumbfounded. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't look like a fight between people from the cultivation world. Qiu Wuyuan said in a daze, giving up his advantage, "It looks like he's going to fight with his life. Luo Qingtian is a bit out of control. It's been more than 100 moves." Dongfang Cheng Ao said, then turned his head and said, "If the treasure passed down by 10,000 demons as previous leaders was destroyed in your hands, you would also be a bit out of control." Big broadsword. Ziyi's lips parted slightly. Yu Qianzhou's one-on-one style completely subverted her concept of fighting. This was especially so for that kind of valiant and unafraid of death. That kind of aura of either you die or I live was absolutely shocking. Speaking of which, Luo Qingtian was just impulsive. After a long time, he realized that it was hard for him to get close to Yu Qianzhou with his cultivation. He immediately came to his senses and realized that something was wrong. As the two sabers danced, there seemed to be a heart-palpitating aura and a bone-piercing chill. It was even colder than the ice beneath their feet. It was the kind of bone-chilling feeling. The most frightening thing was that there was an irresistible sense of trance. This was probably the reason why he had lost his composure. This pair of black broadswords was definitely not simple. As soon as he woke up, Luo Qingtian naturally wouldn't bother with him anymore. He found an opportunity and moved dozens of meters away in a flash. Yu Qianzhou became more and more courageous as the battle went on. He was having a great time fighting, so why did his opponent run away? He shouted, "Old thing, don't run." He carried a pair of large sabers and chased after them again. When the spectators heard this, their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. This brat was unforgiving when he had the upper hand, and he was addicted to fighting. Qiu Wuyuan lowered his head and sighed helplessly. Luo Qingtian, you've really embarrassed yourself today." Daluo Mountain splitting palm. Luo Qingtian shouted before he could stand still. He raised his hand and a huge palm shadow appeared. F***CK. Yu Qianzhou screamed and quickly stopped. If he was hit by this palm, his life would be in danger. Therefore, without saying anything, he threw a large saber with force, and the blade pointed directly at Luo Qingtian. When Luo Qingtian saw that his opponent actually abandoned the treasure to protect himself, a flash of joy appeared on his face. The Daluo sect leader's inheritance treasure was destroyed in his hands. If he could get a better treasure back, not only would he not be guilty, but he would also be rewarded. In an instant, he had an idea. He instantly retracted the power of the mountain splitting palm. His body moved to the side to avoid the blade, and he easily grabbed the handle of the saber. Not good. Dongfang Cheng Ao and Qiu Wuyuan screamed at the same time. The latter's eyes were burning as he said, "If such a treasure falls into Luo Qingtian's hands, I'm afraid it won't be able to return." The moment Luo Qingtian grabbed the saber, he immediately felt the majestic and breathtaking power from the saber. It was a kind of power that seemed to come from the netherworld. It was a kind of power that could decide a person's life and death. It was gloomy, terrifying, cold, ruthless. At that moment, all kinds of extreme negative emotions spread from the saber. Luo Qingtian's body trembled, and he couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He held the saber and laughed wildly. "It's really a good saber. I've never seen such a treasure in my life. Haha." The eyes of the spectators were filled with greed again. This saber could be so affirmed by Luo Qingtian, so it was definitely not something that an ordinary treasure could compare with. Moreover, everyone had witnessed the power from before. "Yu Qianzhou, you destroyed my Daluo sect's inherited treasure. Now, Your saber can be used as a scapegoat. From today onwards, it belongs to my Daluo sect. Luo Qingtian pointed the long saber at Yu Qianzhou and said. On the shore, the group of Daluo sect disciples were also filled with joy. Yu Qianzhou silently put away the saber in his hand into his storage pouch, as if the fight was already over. Everyone suddenly realized that the deadline of 100 moves had long since passed. The sect master of the exalted Immortal sect would not go back on his word. However, everyone felt that it was a pity. Although Yu Qianzhou's life was saved, he had lost such a treasure. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to get it back from Daluo sect in the future. Just as everyone was shaking their heads in pity, they heard Yu Qianzhou coldly snort and say, "My saber is my saber, and my things are my things. If I don't want to give it to you, no one can take it away. Only I am worthy of this saber." He slowly raised his finger towards Luo Qingtian and said, "You are not worthy. 100 moves have passed. I don't want to fight anymore. If you want to live, put down the saber and I'll spare your life." Everyone shook their heads again. Everyone knew how to boast. Luo Qingtian's cultivation was higher than yours. Now that he had such a treasure, why would you, Yu Qianzhou, find trouble for yourself? Ze was probably the only one who believed that Yu Qianzhou wasn't boasting. She didn't believe Yu Qianzhou, but she believed that Elder Bai's disciple wouldn't boast. Since he said so, there must be a reason. Luo Qingtian held the saber horizontally in front of him and looked at it carefully. He sneered and said, "Yu Qianzhou, don't be too presumptuous. I promise I won't kill you after 100 moves, but I won't allow you to provoke me. If you make me angry, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your other saber. Since you're looking for death, don't blame me." Yu Qianzhou said coldly and suddenly shouted, "Put down the saber." As soon as he shouted, "Ah!" Luo Qingtian let out a scream and the saber in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. Yu Qianzhou stretched out 2 fingers and flicked it expressionlessly. The big black saber on the ice bounced up and spun in the air. It went straight to the side of Yu Qianzhou. Everyone was shocked by the sudden change of situation. Dongfang Cheng, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other. With Luo Qingtian's cultivation and mind, how could ordinary pain make him scream so painfully? What was going on? Of course, they didn't know that this saber was condensed by black fire and was controlled by Yu Qianzhou. If Yu Qianzhou said it was a saber, then it was a saber. If he said it was fire, then it was fire. Just now, it only made Luo Qingtian hold the saber handle a little bit of black fire. Think about the black fire that even Bai Changchun couldn't overcome. How could Luo Qingtian bear it, even if it was just a little bit of black fire? Yu Qianzhou didn't want to reveal the secret of the black fire for the time being. Otherwise, if the entire saber turned into a sea of black fire, Luo Qingtian wouldn't be alive. The disciples of Daluo sect couldn't bear it anymore. They quickly rushed over to check on their sect leader's injury. They were also vigilant of Yu Qianzhou, who was standing not far away with the saber. Dongfang Cheng, Ao, Qiu Wuyuan, Ze, the 4 patriarchs, and many onlookers rushed onto the floating ice. The entire floating ice sank into the water. The water had already reached the top of everyone's shoes, but no one cared about it now. With so many people coming, Luo Qingtian bit his lips and endured the pain to not make a sound. The arm that he used to hold the saber was shaking non-stop. Everyone suddenly realized that Luo Qingtian's palm had already turned into white bones. There was a dark murderous aura on the wound, and it was still spreading to his arm. Wherever the murderous aura went, pieces of flesh would fall off. When they fell on the ice, they would slowly corrode and turn into blood. The situation was too horrible to look at. According to this situation, if the murderous aura didn't stop spreading, it wouldn't take long for Luo Qingtian to turn into a skeleton. The group of people was suddenly eager to try, but no one dared to step forward. After all, Luo Qingtian was already in such a state with his cultivation. Sect leader. A group of Daluo sect disciples suddenly exclaimed. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from the saber to Luo Qingtian's body. They saw that his injured arm was gone, and an arm that was almost completely corroded into bones was lying on the ground. The bones were also slowly rotting in the wind. This Luo Qingtian was really cruel to himself. When he heard that there was no cure, in order to save his life, he actually took action himself and used his left hand to remove his right arm. However, this was still a good way to save his life. Although he lost an arm, his life was at least saved. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows slightly. In fact, it wasn't that he couldn't save Luo Qingtian. He could completely absorb the killing intent, but he wouldn't do that. His thought was that since they were opponents, they should have the awareness of being opponents. It was a bit ridiculous to expect an opponent to save an opponent. How could there be such a good thing all the time, unless the opponent had some ulterior motives? This was the reality that both the winner and the loser had to face. There was no such thing as logic. Luo Qingtian was indeed a character, at least in front of everyone. After he stood up with the help of the inner sect disciples, he stared at Yu Qianqiu with a pale face and said, "From today onwards, the grievances between me and Daluo sect and you, Yu Qianqiu, will be written off." He was indeed qualified to say such words on behalf of Daluo sect. After he finished speaking, he was helped away by the disciples. However, everyone could clearly see the resentment in those disciples' eyes as they looked at Yu Qianqiu before they left. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He was even more determined to settle the score with Daluo sect. He would not show any mercy. The dignified Daluo sect leader ended up like this. The entire Daluo sect's face was lost. Everyone sighed incessantly. When they looked at Yu Qianqiu again, they suddenly came to a realization. This guy was definitely a famous figure in the cultivation world. He'd challenged the exalted Immortal sect master one-on-one, and won. After one night, his name would probably shake the entire cultivation world. Although he did not win with his own cultivation, Dharma arts and treasures were also part of his strength. There was nothing to doubt about that. By right, the crowd should have dispersed by now, but they were still lingering. Naturally, they were still drooling over the treasured saber. Who asked Yu Qianqiu to say that? Brother Yu. Qiu Wuyuan rubbed his hands together and said with some embarrassment, "You said that the saber will belong to whoever can take it away. Is that true? Senior Qiu, you've known me for so many years. When have you ever seen me lie?" Yu Qianqiu smiled and continued, "But I advise Senior Qiu not to try. Why don't you watch the show?" Qiu Wuyuan was a little hesitant. What if someone else took away such a good thing? However, he wasn't confident either. In the end, he pursed his lips and said reluctantly, "What a pity. All right, I'll listen to you. As if I'm confident that you'll listen to me." Yu Qianqiu retracted his smile and looked around. He said in a deep voice, "I don't have time to play with everyone here. If anyone wants to try, come at me. If there's no one else, I'll be keeping the saber and leaving." Even though everyone was eager to try, there were a few experts present who did not say anything. Naturally, it was not convenient for the rest to take the lead. Unexpectedly, someone behind Yu Qianqiu asked weakly, "Can I go and try?" It was a woman's voice. Yu Qianqiu almost fainted when he heard that. "I set up the arena here with a plan. Why did you come and ruin my plan?" The person who said this was none other than Ze. She was also excited to see such a treasure. However, how could Yu Qianqiu let her try? He was afraid that she would take it away the moment she took it. He didn't dare to hurt her. Others can, but not you. Yu Qianqiu rejected her straightforwardly. This time, Ze couldn't take it anymore. She turned to face him and asked coldly, "Why can others but not me? It's fine if you're stubborn, but why did you come out and ruin my plans?" Yu Qianqiu couldn't get angry at her. He kicked the back of the saber, and the saber tilted. He grabbed the handle and pulled it out. He looked around and said, "I, Yu Qianqiu, am an honest person. I don't talk nonsense. Words that have been spoken are like water that has been spilled. There's no way to take them back. However, I see that everyone here is very polite. It's not a good idea to keep giving way. How about this? Patriarch Wu. He turned around and shouted, "How many spirit stones do you think my saber is worth?" Wu Sihai came closer and said in surprise, What do you want to do? Do you want to sell the saber? Don't think too much. If I auction this saber, what do you think the starting price will be? Yu Qianqiu smiled. Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. They had the same doubts as Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai looked at him suspiciously and said in a deep voice, "If you auction it, the origin, name, material, power, and whether it can be used repeatedly are all factors that determine the price." Yu Qianqiu looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "It's said that someone brought this saber out from the Eastern Holy Land. As for his origin, I don't know anything. However, one thing is for sure. It can definitely be used repeatedly. I've used it for a very long time." What, the legendary Eastern Holy Land? A wave of exclamations came from all directions. Experienced cultivators had all heard of this place. It was the ruins of an ancient war. Something that could come out from there might be a spirit treasure. No wonder this saber's power was so domineering. It turned out that it came from the Eastern Holy Land. Ze frowned in doubt. Who would have the ability to bring something out from the Eastern Holy Land? Yu Qianqiu didn't care about everyone's glowing eyes. He looked at Wu Sihai and said, "Just estimate the starting price for the auction. Don't be too high, 100 million high-grade spirit stones." Wu Sihai was silent for a while and finally spat out this number. "That's too high." Yu Qianqiu said in a clear voice, "I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word. I said that whoever can draw this saber will have this saber. I won't go back on my word. However, it seems that everyone has a lot of scruples. I'm afraid that those who don't have the ability will lose their lives in vain. Here, I, Yu Qianqiu, solemnly declare to the entire cultivation world that in 3 days, I will be holding a saber drawing conference on Hat Island. In order to prevent people with bad intentions from causing trouble, those who draw the saber must pay 10 million high-grade spirit stones in advance. The time limit is 15 minutes. Of course, those who have more money can try again as long as they pay." Chapter 366. What if it's really taken away by 10 million high-grade spirit stones? Are you really willing to let someone take away such a treasure? Someone in the crowd shouted. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the knee-deep river and laughed heartily. "This floating ice can't bear the burden anymore. Let's talk about it after we get ashore." He kept the saber and rode his flying sword to the shore first. The group of people was too engrossed in the treasure and didn't care about what was happening under their feet. After Yu Qianqiu reminded them, they all went ashore. When almost everyone was there, Yu Qianqiu pointed at the person who spoke earlier and said, "I won't hide it from you. I, Yu Qianqiu, will say anything. I've never lied since I was young. It's innate and can't be changed. If someone really took away the saber with 10 million high-grade spirit stones, not only will I not regret it, but I will also congratulate him. Today, I'll leave this statement here. Everyone can be a witness. The time limit is 15 minutes. Isn't the time too short?" Someone asked again. However, those who asked this question were basically people who could afford 10 million. Yu Qianqiu explained enthusiastically, "It won't do if there's no time limit. If someone takes a few days to draw the saber, what will happen to the people behind them?" Many people laughed secretly. It seemed like some people really had this thought, 10 million per person, isn't it a little expensive? Another person asked. It's not expensive at all." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "Just now, Clan Head Wu estimated it at 100 million. Everyone heard it. Wu Clan has a foothold in the cultivation world because of their reputation. I believe everyone won't doubt it. If I, Yu Qianqiu, am really greedy, I won't set the price at 10 million. I'll directly set it at 100 million. Originally, I didn't want to charge a single spirit stone for this saber drawing conference. But after thinking about it, I can't accept it. If you don't accept it, then everyone in the cultivation world will flock here. Everyone will want to have a try, and there will definitely be a big mess. But if you set the price too high, wouldn't you? That would be unfair to those who have the ability but not enough money, so I directly reduced the price of 100 million to 10 million. This way, there would be a threshold for more people to participate, and it would also avoid unnecessary trouble. Yu Qianqiu, you said that those who can afford to pay can try again. For most people, this is not fair enough. If some people fail to pull it out, they won't have a second chance. But those who have money can try again. The person who spoke turned around and asked the crowd, everyone, don't you think it's unfair? Immediately, many people joined in and jeered, yes, it's not fair. Everyone can only try once. The scene became a little chaotic. Without saying a word, Yu Qianqiu took out the machete from his storage pouch. The machete immediately emitted a breathtaking aura. It was as if the entire machete was possessed by a demon from the netherworld. Under the sun, there was not even the slightest bit of reflection. Those who were near the machete shuddered and retreated. The scene quietened down and everyone's eyes focused on the machete. Although the machete did not look like much, its power was unquestionable. It was definitely a good treasure. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything. He held the machete horizontally and let everyone admire it. Peeping at other people's treasures was also a taboo in the cultivation world. But now, the owner of the treasure was so generous, so everyone naturally would not miss the opportunity to carefully examine it. However, some people were restless. They could not get enough of looking at it with their eyes. They actually released their divine senses to check, hoping to peep at the mysteries within. This time, it was lively. Immediately, more than a dozen screams came from the crowd. The dozen people held their heads with their hands and lay on the ground, wailing. The others immediately became vigilant, not knowing what was happening. Yu Qianqiu threw the machete in the air. The machete fell and went straight into the ground beside him. He held the handle with one hand and sneered, I forgot to remind everyone that this machete is extremely powerful. I don't think any Dharma treasure below the level of a numinous treasure can withstand its sharpness. However, it also has another effect. It can hurt people's divine senses. Sect leader Luo had suffered from it before. I believe these dozen people have used their divine senses to check this treasure just now, right? So that was the case. Everyone relaxed their vigilance. No one cared about the dozen people who were still groaning in pain. Their eyes focused on the machete again, and their greed could not be concealed. They did not expect this machete to be so magical. It could actually hurt people's divine senses. It was really an amazing treasure. No wonder Luo Qingtian suddenly let out a scream for no reason. It turned out that his divine senses had been hurt by this treasure. Dongfang Chang, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan also found it a little difficult to move their eyes away from the machete. What that friend said just now is right. The previous method seems to be a little unfair. How about this? The price and time limit for drawing the machete remain the same. Each person can only do it once. However, there are many rogue cultivators in the cultivation world. They do not belong to any sect. Compared to those who have sects, they are the most disadvantaged. In order to reflect absolute fairness, each sect or family can only send one person to draw the machete. It's still the same saying. The machete belongs to whoever can draw it. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu asked. This was good for most people, but for those big sects, it was a loss. Which sect didn't want to get their hands on such a treasure? However, everyone saw the power of this machete. Even Luo Qingtian could not resist it. Which sect could guarantee that they could draw it? The big sects had a lot of money and experts. They definitely wanted to try a few more times. Yu Qianqiu's words were considered fair, but no one dared to agree. Most people looked at Dongfang Chang, Ao and Xiao Wuyuan. And these two people also glanced at the crowd with burning eyes. Because of fairness, the atmosphere was a little gloomy. After waiting for a while, no one said anything. Yu Qianqiu walked to Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan and bowed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Seniors, please take the lead and say something. Elder Qiu, you know how I am. I always mean what I say." At the beginning, everyone felt that the rules were unfair. I had no choice but to change the rules. But now, no one said anything. I am really in a dilemma. Seniors, please say something for me. Hee hee. Qiu Wuyuan sneered and glanced at the crowd. Brother Yu, I have known you for many years. You are indeed a man of your words. The treasure is yours. You have also set the rules. No one has the right to change the rules. Do what you should, and don't allow others to criticize you. If anyone is dissatisfied with your strength, I will be the first one who can't stand it. Whoever is dissatisfied, come at me. I, Qiu Wuyuan, agree with the original rules and object to the new rules. Dongfang Chang, Ao nodded slightly and said, the rules of fairness should be reflected on everyone, not just the sections. There are big and small sects, and there are also different numbers of disciples. We can't let the other disciples lose the chance to fight for the treasure because of the suppression of the elders in the sect. I think the original rules are fairer. His words sounded nice. If a disciple of a sect obtained the treasure, who could keep it for themselves? They would still have to hand it over to the sect. Moreover, how many disciples could take out 10 million yuan? Among the righteous and demonic sects, one was rude and unyielding, while the other was tactful and more skillful. But their goal was the same, which was to agree with the original rules. Since the two leaders of the righteous and demonic sects had spoken, the others didn't dare to have any objections. In the end, they still followed the original rules. Since no one has any objections, please spread the rules of this saber-drawing meet to the entire cultivation world. I, Yu Qianqiu, also hope that this treasure can be obtained by someone capable. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands at the crowd. He casually picked up the huge saber from the ground and stuffed it into his storage bag. Then, he patted his butt and left. Seeing how easily he drew the saber, everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 367. The bridge from Hat Island to the Wu clan had been burned. Although the floating ice on the river was enough to carry Yu Qianqiu and the others, they had to fly over. The crowd dispersed one after another, anxious to report back to the sect what had happened here. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan watched Yu Qianqiu leave. After a while, the two of them glanced at each other at the same time and snorted disdainfully. The two of them, who had a tacit understanding just a moment ago, split up. In quiet guest house, Yu Qianqiu walked around and unexpectedly didn't see Wu Lixue. However, he didn't have the mood to think too much about it. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach that stubborn girl a lesson. When he returned to the living room, Zi was standing there with an embarrassed face. She seemed to have realized her mistake. Humph. Yu Qianqiu sneered, then turned to face her and said in a strange tone, I really don't know why my master sent you to follow me. Hee hee. Help me. Using the method of working against me to assist me? That's my honor. Thank you for your cooperation. But I've had enough. Now, please go back to Shantian Island and find my master. Tell him that I'm a difficult person to work with. I'm the one who chased you away. You can push all the blame to me. I won't refute it. Then, you can stay in your South Sea purple bamboo forest. Please. I won't send you off. He gestured to the door. Ziyi's slightly drooping face suddenly lifted up. She said with some resentment, You want to chase me away? How can I face Elder Bai like this? What a joke. You also know that you don't have the face to face my master? Yu Qianqiu asked with a sullen face, Do you know why I took out my treasure to hold that sword-drawing assembly? I didn't know at first, but now I know. Ziyi's face drooped again and she said, For the spirit stones. Then do you know why I need the spirit stones? Yu Qianqiu asked bitterly. This time, Ziyi's head drooped even lower. Her voice was almost inaudible as she said, to complete Elder Bai's great trust. So you knew. I thought you didn't know. Yu Qianqiu immediately rebuked him harshly. Then why did you ruin my plan at that critical moment? You keep saying that you want to complete the task that my master entrusted to you. Is this how you complete it? Do you think I would dare to keep you by my side? I think there's no need for you to do anything more, and we can return to Obedient Island to complete our mission. Only Yu Qianqiu could say such harsh words to such a pure and beautiful woman. However, this guy had made up his mind to educate Ze. He had to do it while this girl was still pure. Otherwise, if she became as cunning as the Enchantress of 100 Charms, he wouldn't be able to fool her even if he wanted to. So, he had to take the opportunity to educate her. From now on, he had to make her firmly believe that everything Yu Qianqiu said and did was right. I was wrong, don't chase me back. Ze lowered her head as she said this. She actually started to sob. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He didn't think that he could make a late-stage transcending tribulation cultivator cry. His heart softened a little, but he immediately hardened his heart and said fiercely, I was wrong? What a simple sentence. Does it mean that when someone does something wrong, they just have to say they were wrong and everything will be fine? Then what's the point of fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Ze immediately shook her head and said, don't chase me back. Give me another chance. I won't go against you in the future. I'll do whatever you say. Humph. You say it nicely, but when your temper flares up one day, I'm afraid you'll forget what you said today. Yu Qianqiu expressed his disbelief. I promise. Ze raised her hand and wiped the tears from her eyes. She said seriously, if you don't believe me, I can swear. From the looks of it, you really do know your mistake. Then I'll believe you this once. You don't have to swear it. I believe you won't make me sad again because you're not that kind of stupid woman. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and thought, if your father knows that I made you swear like this, he definitely won't forgive me. After he finished thinking, he took out a spirit pill from his bag of holding and opened his palm in front of Ze. Ze, who had a cautious expression on her face, suddenly had stars appear in her eyes. Yu Qianqiu had a 7-colored spirit pill in his hand. Rich spirit energy surrounded the pill, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary spirit pill. Actually, whether or not the pill was good wasn't what attracted her, but the beautiful 7-colored light. It was natural for women to love beauty. Here, eat it now. Yu Qianqiu smiled and handed it to Ze. Ze took it suspiciously and asked, what kind of spirit pill is this? Do I eat it now? As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Yu Qianqiu's expression sink. Ze immediately remembered what she had just promised him and swallowed it without hesitation. She stood to the side without saying anything, silently feeling the changes in her body. Yu Qianqiu walked to the chair opposite her and sat down. He smiled and asked, have you heard of the Rui pill? I've heard from my master that it is a rare treasure of the human world. Consuming one can make one youthful, and it can also. Ze paused and pointed at herself in disbelief. She stammered, what I just consumed, could it be? Rui pill? That's right, it's the rare Rui pill you mentioned. Yu Qianqiu smiled. This was what it meant to give a carrot after a stick. He was going to teach her a lesson and not be afraid that she wouldn't listen to him in the future. Ze was so flustered that she didn't know what to say. The Rui pill could make people stay young. It was something that all women dreamed of. She took a long time to calm down and said, Yu Qianqiu, thank you. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu stood up and said disappointedly, hey. Originally, this pill could be sold for at least 100 million upper spiritual stones. It might even be more than that. I kept it for myself for a long time, but I can't let you work with me for nothing. Just take it that you've done me a favor and I'm paying you for it. Now that you've taken my salary, you can't throw a tantrum in the future. When Ze heard this, she couldn't be excited anymore. She stood there with an idiotic look on her face. According to Yu Qianqiu, this was a time when they needed money. Did she eat 100 million just like that? Could it be more than 100 million? Moreover, Yu Qianqiu couldn't bear to eat it himself, but he gave it to her. She really owed him a big favor. She might not be able to repay him. Just when the two of them were speechless, Wu Lixue walked in from outside. Her face was pale and she didn't look good. When she saw Yu Qianqiu, she actually bowed and said, "My grandfather and the others are outside the courtyard. They want to come in and greet you." Yu Qianqiu was surprised and said, "Shui, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" He walked over and wanted to touch her forehead. Unexpectedly, Wu Lixue immediately took a few steps back as if she was avoiding a thief. This made Yu Qianqiu's caring hand miss. This time, Yu Qianqiu was even more surprised. How did a lively and lovely woman who was in love become like this? There must be a big change. He then narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Shui, what's wrong with you? Did someone bully you? Who dares to touch my woman? Tell me, I'll kill his whole family." Wu Lixue didn't say anything. Whenever Yu Qianqiu took a step closer, she would take a step back. Yu Qianqiu was instantly anxious. He chuckled coldly and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? I'll go out now and kill everyone I see. I'll definitely find someone who knows." After speaking, he let out a cold snort and flung his sleeves before rushing out. Yu Qianqiu was famous in the cultivation world for daring to do anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the titles of scum and lunatic. Wu Lixue often cared about him, so she naturally heard of his deeds. She definitely believed that he could really start a massacre in the Wu clan. She immediately blocked the door and pleaded, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be reckless. I'll tell you." "Say it. What exactly is going on?" Yu Qianqiu asked in a deep voice. Wu Lixue had a painful expression as she bit her lips and said, "I heard that you are my clan's old ancestor's personal disciple. Even my grandfather and the others have to respect you as a teacher. It is against the rules for us to be together." Yu Qianqiu raised his brows and immediately understood what was going on. He immediately spoke straightforwardly, "Bullsh*t. Who's the one spouting nonsense? I have no relationship with your Wu clan's old ancestor. When did I become your old ancestor's personal disciple? This is pure nonsense." Ziyi's eyes moved back and forth between the two of them. There were many things she couldn't understand, but she had a slight pain in her stomach and was holding on to it. Wu Lixue's tightly knitted brows gradually relaxed. There was a trace of pleasant surprise on her face, but she didn't dare to reveal it. She asked weakly, "Is it true? Then why did Elder Wu Zhengang tell me this?" "You silly lass. Don't you know that I have a grudge with him? He is purposely using you to anger me and make me unhappy. Don't you understand?" Yu Qianqiu pretended to be angry as he reprimanded. However, he was really angry in his heart. "It's Wu Zhengang again. I haven't even settled the score with you, but you are here to stir up trouble. Very good. Really?" Wu Lixue's eyes lit up. "Of course it's true. Your grandfather and the others respect me because my current master is highly respected in the cultivation world. It's not as complicated as you think." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and caressed her hair. There was a rare gentleness in his eyes. He thought in his heart, "Originally, I could openly use Old Man Bai's name to extort money from the 4 major clans. I gave up doing that because of you. Furthermore, your surname is Wu and you have no blood relationship with the surname Bai. How can the surname Bai be your old ancestor? Bring her to the bath first." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Ziyi and pouted to the outside. "Also, let your grandfather and the others come in." When Wu Lixue saw Ziyi, he was immediately startled. He exclaimed, "Ziyi, what happened to you?" He saw that on Ziyi's exposed skin, there was a black stain. It was a bit scary. Ziyi was also shocked when she touched it. However, she might have some understanding of the Rui pill. After the shock, she immediately reacted. After looking at Yu Qianqiu, she immediately urged Wu Lixue to bring her away. After watching the two women leave, Yu Qianqiu thought about making another batch of Rui pill when he had the time. The footsteps outside interrupted his thoughts. He put on a smile and went out to welcome them. The patriarchs of the 4 major clans, the 6 clan elders, and the more important elders of the Wu clan were all here. The greetings between the two parties were a little awkward. Now, because of Yu Qianqiu's identity, although they hadn't said it openly, everyone didn't know how to address him. Yu Qianqiu didn't care. He made way and waved his hand. "Everyone, if you have something to say, please come in and take a seat. We can talk slowly." The group of people nodded and walked into the hall one after another. Just as everyone entered in a single file, Yu Qianqiu's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fierceness. A clump of green flames that had been raised to the extreme suddenly appeared in his hand, and he suddenly shot it at Wu Zhengang, who was passing by. At such a close distance, Wu Zhengang was unprepared. Before he could react, he was enveloped by the raging green flame. "Ah!" A short scream resounded through the quiet guest house. As the green flame disappeared, Wu Zhengang had already turned into ashes. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. "No matter what intentions you had when you said those words to Wu Lixue, I will kill you. Whatever intentions you have will be for naught." The people of the 4 major clans suddenly looked over and were instantly stunned. But Yu Qianqiu put on a smiling face, as if nothing had happened. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone, take a seat inside. I was just about to discuss the matter of the saber drawing assembly with everyone. Please." He took the lead and walked into the hall. Chapter 368. He could act as though nothing had happened, but it was impossible for the Wu clan to act as though nothing had happened. Especially with Wu Zhenggang's status, which was only slightly inferior to the clan head, Wu Sihai. He already had a group of followers in the Wu clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone against the clan head, Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai was stunned on the spot, and the group was dumbfounded. The first to react was Wu Zhenggang's backer, Wu Bao. He teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu and clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. His face was completely red as he shouted angrily, "Yu Qianqiu, you, how am I impudent?" Yu Qianqiu smiled with his eyes squinted. The group recovered from the shock. The 5 clan elders from the 4 major clans teleported over and stood in between the two of them, but they didn't know what to say. Especially Bai Clan's clan elder, Bai Yunshan. In terms of seniority, Yu Qianqiu was their clan's senior. To the other 3 clans, it wasn't an overboard thing to disobey the teachings of their ancestors from 2,000 years ago. Therefore, now that Yu Qianqiu had killed a Wu clan elder, Bai Yunshan was the most embarrassed. He couldn't help, but he couldn't not either. After all, Yu Qianqiu was backed by his clan's proud ancestor. But it wasn't right for Yu Qianqiu to kill someone without a reason. Bai Yunshan guarded against Wu Bao and asked Yu Qianqiu, "Why did you kill Wu Zhengang? If you don't give a reasonable reason, I'm afraid the Wu clan won't tolerate you." The 4 clan heads looked at each other and didn't say a word. It was better to let the 6 clan elders handle such a troublesome matter. Reason? There were plenty of reasons. Yu Qianqiu sneered, "You are Bai Yunshan from the 4 major clans, right?" Bai Yunshan frowned and nodded, "Yes." "Good. I didn't tell you my identity before, but I believe you have guessed it. I will tell you now." Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and bowed towards the Fey Ghost region and said, "My master is the world's #1 expert, the Fey Ghost region's punishment enforcer, a late-stage soul formation cultivator, Bai Changchun. Yu Qianqiu was ordered by my master to handle some matters. Now that I have met my master's descendant, the Bai clan's descendant, should greet him respectfully." Although everyone already knew Yu Qianqiu's identity, the shock they felt when they heard it from his mouth was indescribable. Bai Yunshan and Bai Shoji were so moved that their lips were trembling. Without saying a word, they obediently walked to Yu Qianqiu and knelt down. Bai Yunshan sincerely bowed and said, "The descendants of the Bai clan are indebted to our ancestors, allowing us to survive for more than 2,000 years. We dare not forget our ancestors. Descendant by Yunshan and son by Shoji kowtow to Mr. The two of them immediately kowtowed as soon as they finished speaking. They were still extremely excited. The reason why the two of them were so excited was that Yu Qianshou's words had stimulated the proudest part of their hearts. Who in the cultivation world dared to claim to be the world's #1 expert? The ancestor of the Bai clan dared to do so. Who in the world could control the demon ghost domain where demons and ghosts roamed freely? It was their ancestor. How many cultivators of the late deity stage were there in the world? Their ancestor was one of them. The glory of their ancestors would naturally shine on their descendants. The two of them could not help but be excited. After kowtowing, father and son were still kneeling there, waiting for Yu Qianshou to wake them up. Yu Qianshou graciously accepted their greetings. Then, he looked at the other three clans and said, "After all, the three of you are not my master's bloodline descendants. Although you all follow the teachings of your ancestors and regard my master as your ancestor, I dare not ask too much of you. However, if you receive a drop of kindness from someone, you must repay it with a gushing spring. If the four great clans are willing to kowtow and pay their respects, then do so now." Hearing this, the clan leaders and clan elders of the Tan clan and the Jing clan also kneeled down and paid their respects. The people of the Wu clan instantly looked at each other. Logically, they should go and pay their respects. However, Yu Qianshou had just killed Wu Jinggang. Moreover, he had not given a reason yet. Who could bring themselves to bow and pay their respects? If they wanted to pay their respects, Yu Qianshou could have just given any reason. But what was going on now? Could it be that this kid wanted to break up the four great clans? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianshou with a gloomy expression. When Yu Qianshou asked the people of the three clans to stand up, he suddenly winked at him. Wu Sihai was momentarily stunned. Then, he immediately realized what was going on. In his heart, he immediately prostrated himself in admiration. This kid was really something. Not only did he kill Wu Jinggang for revenge, he also solved the problem of seniority with Shuai. His intelligence and ability to respond to emergencies were really outstanding. I have accepted your three clans' greetings and confirmed my status with your three clans. The Wu clan is not willing to pay their respects to me. Naturally, there is no seniority relationship between me and the Wu clan. Of course. Yu Qianshou looked at the Wu clan and said, "I personally cannot represent my master. This is a matter between me and your Wu clan. Your four major clans will still be your four major clans. There is no need for you to tie everything together endlessly." The development of the matter didn't exceed Wu Sihai's expectations, but he didn't know that Yu Qianshou had another reason for doing this. It wasn't easy to get the Wu clan's money because of Wu Lixue, but the other three clans weren't weak either. He had to find a way to get them to fork out some money. He had already thought it through. Since Bai Changchun had given the authority to him, the old fellow wouldn't mind if he were to get some money from his descendants. The matter of seniority has been clarified. Now, let's talk about Wu Jingang's matter. There is no hurry to settle everything one by one. Yu Qianshou turned to the other three clans and said, "Your three clans might be curious why I wanted to kill Wu Jinggang. If the Wu clan hasn't forgotten about the reason, you should be clear about it. Why don't your three clans ask the Wu clan?" The hall went silent, and only Wu Bao was still panting with rage. In fact, the four major clans knew about the grudge between Yu Qianshou and Wu Jinggang. They also knew that Yu Qianshou said he would take Wu Jingang's life. It was just that this matter happened too suddenly, and even the victim didn't have time to react. The other three clans might have confirmed the seniority with Yu Qianshou, but they were all flesh, and it wouldn't be good to help anyone. I refuse to accept this. Wu Bao roared and looked at everyone. Yu Qianshou might be the old ancestor's disciple, but what right does he have to kill wantonly in my Wu clan? What right does he have? Don't implicate my master. I am only asking you, what right does that Wu Jinggang have to kill me? Could it be that he doesn't need a reason to kill others, but others need a reason to take revenge? Tell me, what right does Wu Jinggang have? Could it be that just because you are his backer in the Wu clan, he can act unscrupulously? Yu Qianqiu spoke with an icy cold tone. Wu Bao opened his mouth. He knew that what Yu Qianqiu said was the truth, and everyone knew about this matter. Wu Bao didn't know how to refute. Most importantly, he couldn't reason with Yu Qianqiu, and he couldn't use force either. Be it reasoning or forcing logic, Yu Qianqiu had never been afraid of anyone. Yu Qianqiu stared at Wu Bao and spoke in a deep voice, I don't wish to have any impulsive conflict with the Wu clan. Since you don't accept me, I can make an exception and bring you to the demon ghost region to meet my master. I will let my master decide the right and wrong. I wonder if my master's words can convince you. Hearing that they were going to meet by Changchun, everyone's eyes were fixated on Wu Bao. It was unknown if they were envious or worried, but Wu Bao was instantly speechless. This matter will be put aside for now. After I settle the matter that my master instructed, my master and your ancestor will decide the right and wrong of this matter. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone and asked. I agree. Wu Zhen took the lead to agree, and Wu Rui nodded as well. Wu Sihai naturally didn't have anything to say, let alone the other Wu clan's elders. Finally, the four major clans decided to put this matter on hold and wait for Bai Changchun to handle it. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, all right, since everyone has agreed, we will put aside the grudges for now. The saber drawing meet still needs to borrow your Wu clan's venue, and we will need your Wu clan's help for this matter. Let us discuss this matter first. Chapter 369. The holding of the saber drawing ceremony could be said to have set off a huge uproar in the cultivation world. A treasured saber from the Eastern Holy Land. This gimmick alone was enough to attract people. What kind of place was the Eastern Holy Land? It was an ancient battlefield where ancient spiritual treasures had been used for generations. No one knew how many mysterious things were left there. In addition, Yu Qianqiu had defeated the Daluo sect master with this saber, so it was hard not to be jealous. The major sects gathered their masters and counted the spirit stones in their storage. They were all full of confidence and prepared to get the saber back. Some small sects that were not strong enough also asked their ancestors to help. Some small sects that did not have enough spirit stones even borrowed money from everywhere to give it a try. Who wouldn't be tempted by a mere 10 million spirit stones that could possibly be exchanged for a spiritual treasure? After all, the saber was very strange. It was not something that could be obtained by someone with a high cultivation level. Luo Qingtian's cultivation level was high, right? He still could not take it away. Yu Qianqiu's cultivation level was not high, right? He still chased Luo Qingtian everywhere with the saber in his hand. For a time, no one in the cultivation world mentioned the fact that Yu Qianqiu defeated Luo Qingtian. Everyone was concerned about who could take the saber away. It was very likely to be a spiritual treasure. Whoever got it, even if they did not have the fortune to enjoy it, they could still auction it at the Wu clan. That would be a big profit. At this time, Yu Qianqiu released important news to the outside world through the four major families. I, Yu Qianqiu, am really ashamed that I have alarmed the entire cultivation world because of this small matter. Good things come in pairs. I am willing to take out the other treasured saber for the saber drawing contest. Both sabers will be drawn at the same time, so that those who have the ability to get this saber will not return empty-handed. The cultivation world was shocked again. If some people felt that there was no hope for one saber, then there was much more hope for two sabers. Therefore, all the sects were actively preparing spirit stones. Big sects like the Fuxian Island and the 10,000 Demons had many talents and strong financial resources. They were even more prepared to get the two sabers in one go. The East Sea was far away, and the blue waves surged to the heavens. Seabirds soared on a lonely island in the sea. It was unknown when many more buildings had appeared between the mountains, but on the waist of the highest peak on the island, there was even a grand palace that was neither too big nor too small. The island was a nameless island, but the palace was called the Limitless Palace. Therefore, the island was also called the Limitless Island. The owner of the limitless palace was none other than the father and son of the Yen family who were forced to flee overseas. Within the palace, Yen Bugui was at the entrance of the terrifying crypt, anxiously pacing back and forth with his fists clasped. Her. Mournful howls could be heard coming from the crypt, and the sound was extremely heart-wrenching. Yen Bugui was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He stopped in his tracks and leaned against the entrance of the crypt, tears streaming down his face. After a long time, the screams stopped, but heavy breathing could still be heard from inside. At this moment, 7 people dressed in distinctive clothing walked out one after another. All 7 of them were drenched in sweat, as if they had been soaked in water. The leader was a burly man with a leather waistcoat and a black cloak. His bare arms were drenched in sweat. Seeing them come out, Yen Bugui rushed over and pulled that man, asking anxiously, "State Preceptor Man who, how's the star chasing?" The man called State Preceptor Man who let out a long breath and nodded, "It's a success. Young Palace Master's wisdom is indeed extraordinary. For so many years, countless people have died under the 7-star blood-piercing technique, but no one has ever succeeded. To think that young Palace Master actually made it through." Hearing that it was a success, Yen Bugui was anxious to see his son. He wanted to rush into the crypt, but was pulled back by the State Preceptor Man who. The latter shook his head and said, "Palace Master Yen, it's better not to go in now. Young Palace Master has just formed his devil body through the 7-star blood-piercing technique, and his wisdom has changed greatly. I'm afraid that no one will recognize him for the time being. If you go in, it might cause a misunderstanding. Please wait patiently for a day." "Devil body?" Yen Bugui exclaimed, "What devil body? What did you say? What did you do to the star chasing?" "Palace Master Yen, don't be impatient." Man who comforted kindly, "It's not that we want to hide it from you, but young Palace Master asked us to do this. He said that he doesn't want you to worry. Now that the devil body has been formed, young Palace Master's future cultivation speed will increase by leaps and bounds. He will have great achievements in the cultivation world." Yen Bugui was after all not a 3-year-old child. After knowing that his son was fine, he quickly calmed down. However, he still had a gloomy expression on his face as his gaze swept over the 7 of them. He said in a deep voice, "You'd better not hide anything from me. If you dare to plot against us father and son, we'll just perish together. No one will have an easy time. Palace Master Yen is worrying too much. You and I have sworn an oath. We will help you unify China's cultivation world, and after we succeed, you will use the entire China's power to help us find the star bead. After that, we will have nothing to do with each other. How can we plot against each other?" Man who patted Yen Bugui's shoulder and said, "Palace Master Yen, let's go out and talk. I will tell you everything in detail." Yen Bugui waved his sleeve and left angrily, leaving the 7 people looking at each other in dismay. These 7 people were originally 7 martial brothers. They were all disciples of the same master. Man who was their martial brother and also the Dirong Empire's imperial teacher. Eldest martial brother, he is just a stray dog. If we did not save him, he would have lost his life. He is only a crossing tribulation middle stage cultivator, yet he dares to vent his anger on us crossing tribulation late stage cultivators. He must be tired of living. I don't understand, why do we have to rely on him? Could it be that our country's cultivation world combined can't defeat China's cultivation world? The 7th martial brother, who was ranked last, transmitted his voice. Man who glared at him and transmitted his voice back, "China's cultivation world is deeply rooted in xenophobia. Even if we join forces and conquer it, we will face long-term troubles. We will not be able to organize an effective force to find the star bead. This Yen father and son, especially that Yen Zhuixing, are the number 1 sects in both the righteous and demonic Tao. They also have some power in their hands. They are good targets for us to use. In the future, don't talk nonsense like this." Man who finished speaking and turned to leave. The 6 looked at each other and silently followed. In the main hall, Yen Bugui had already dismissed everyone and stood with his hands behind his back. Man who came out from behind and immediately laughed. Palace Lord Yen is still angry? Yen Bugui turned around and said in a deep voice, Man who, what is going on? Man who slightly smiled and directly asked, Palace Lord Yen, have you heard of the demonic Tao? Yen Bugui coldly snorted, this old man comes from the number 1 sect of the demonic Tao, 10,000 demons. How can I not know the principles of the demonic Tao? No, Palace Lord Yen misunderstood. I am talking about the ancient demonic Tao, which is even more ancient than the ancient era. It is not the current demonic Tao of the cultivation world. Man who said with a smile. Ancient? That is at least a few 100,000 years ago. How can this old man know about such a distant matter? Yen Bugui changed the topic and said unhappily, Man who, don't try to change the topic. I'm asking about my son, Yen Juexing. What happened? Man who didn't get angry, he laughed and said, Palace Master Yen is usually a very calm person, how come today? Okay, long story short, if you want to explain the matter of young Palace Master clearly, you have to start from the ancient demonic path. Yen Bugui asked, could it be that what you did to him is related to the ancient demonic Tao? Man who nodded and looked outside the main hall and said, it is said that in the ancient era, there was not only the immortal world and underworld. There was also a world called the demon world. It's said that the demon world is a place that even the immortal and netherworld fear. However, someone sealed the passage to the demon world, so the ancient demon path faded out of people's sight. Until now, very few people know about it. There is such a thing. This old man comes from the demonic Tao. How can I not know about this? Yen Bugui was surprised. Man who laughed and said, the difference between Palace Lord Yan's Devil Tao and Righteous Tao is that the Devil Tao is different. The ancient Devil Tao is the true Great Tao. Compared to the current Devil Tao, it's like a grain of rice trying to compete with the bright moon. It's not worth mentioning, really not worth mentioning. Then how do you know about it? Yen Bugui asked doubtfully. Man who proudly said, 200 years ago, I became the state preceptor of the Di Rong Empire. I happened to find a set of rare animal skin ancient books in the collection of ancient books in the inner palace. But because the characters on it were too old, no one could recognize it. So, it was left unused. Coincidentally, my master is an expert in ancient texts. I have been cultivating with my master for many years and have dabbled in it. So I recognize the origin of this book. What origin? Yen Bugui couldn't help but ask. Devil Book. Man whose expression was solemn as he slowly said, it simply introduces some matters of the ancient demonic Tao. In fact, it is a set of devil arts. Chapter 370. Great Devil Arts. Yen Bugui savored these words and suddenly felt uneasy. The sudden palpitation in his heart was hard to describe. It was as if one was trapped in a swamp, oppressed to the point of being unable to breathe. Both of them seemed to have the same feeling. After looking at each other for a long time, Man who continued, according to the records of the demonic book, once a devil art is completed, even in the immortal and netherworld, there would be few opponents, not to mention the cultivation world experts. Is it really so powerful? Yen Bugui cried out in shock. I won't hide it from Palace Lord Yen, this is only one side of the story in the demonic book, no one knows the truth. Man who said with a serious expression, but the cultivation method recorded in the book is beyond our knowledge, even a spirit-severing expert like my master found it unimaginable. After my master personally translated the demonic book, he ordered me and my fellow apprentices to find people with extraordinary physiques to experiment on. But what was regrettable was that after experimenting with over 1,000 people, not a single one was able to successfully build their body. What? Yen Bugui's expression twitched as he said sternly, Man who, how dare you use my son for such a vicious experiment? Palace Lord Yen, please calm down. Man who consoled, it was not me who used the young Palace Lord as an experiment, but the young Palace Lord himself requested it. One day, the young palace lord asked me what was the strongest cultivation method in the world. I said that I didn't know which magic art was the strongest, but I knew that there was a very strong magic art. It was the strongest magic art that I knew of. The young palace lord immediately asked me, so I told him about the demonic book. In fact, I only said it casually, but who knew that the young palace lord would take it seriously and pester me every day. I was forced to lend him the demonic book, and the result was beyond my expectations. After the young palace lord read it, he resolutely decided to serve the devil and cultivate the demonic book. This was too dangerous, so I asked him to discuss it with you first, but not only did the young palace lord not allow us to tell you, he even asked us to help him conceal it. Unfilial son, unfilial son. After Yen Bugui roared, he stared at man who with bloodshot eyes. Didn't you tell him that there was no successful cultivation method before? If you want to practice demonic arts, you must first build a demonic body. Man who sighed and said, I naturally told young palace master about the previous failures, but young palace master's strong determination is simply unimaginable. We had no choice but to lie to you with the excuse of using a secret technique to increase our cultivation. Fortunately, the young palace master's mind is incomparably strong, and he actually managed to resist the 7-star blood-stabbing art, which is an unbearable torture for ordinary people, and brazenly established his devil body. Even I am surprised. Unfilial son, unfilial son. Yen Bugui kept murmuring like an injured tiger, breathing heavily. It could be seen how important Yen Juexing was to him. Barbarian Tiger and the others exchanged glances and were about to leave quietly to give him some time to calm down. Yen Bugui asked, what about the 7 late-stage nascent soul cultivators under my command? They went in with you. Why didn't they come out? The 7 of them looked at each other in dismay. Man who awkwardly said, those people, I won't hide it from Palace Master Yen. The reason why the young palace master was able to establish his devil body is because of their nascent souls and blood essence. What? Yen Bugui suddenly looked up and said, you mean they are already dead? Man who silently nodded and said, they have already sacrificed themselves for the young palace master. Who would be willing to give up their lives? Yen Bugui was not a fool. With his son's cultivation, it was impossible to force any of the 7 to sacrifice themselves. It must have been done by the 7 late-stage transcending tribulation cultivators, but what could he say? Ding lang, ding lang. At this moment, the sound of chains being dragged came from the back of the hall, causing them to turn their heads. Shortly after, a person covered in blood and tattered clothes came out. His limbs and waist were dragging thick chains. When the person saw the people in the hall, he stopped and looked at them. His blood-red eyes caused them to tremble. If this person was not Yen Juexing, who else could it be? But with such an appearance, no one dared to recognize him. A handsome and elegant man had actually become like this. It was really hard to believe. The atmosphere in the main hall suddenly became strange. Man Hu and his fellow disciples all had a grave expression on their faces. After Yen Juexing's devil body was formed, they had used several thick black iron chains to lock him up. They were afraid that he would run out and cause trouble while his divine sense was not awake. Who knew that he would actually break the chains? How could he do that with his current cultivation? How are you? Yen Bugui regained his composure and was about to walk over to investigate, but Man Hu and the other 6 blocked his path and said, Palace Lord Yen, be careful, young Palace Lord is still in a daze, unable to differentiate between friend and foe. Let him go. Yen Juexing raised his hand that was dragging the chains and pointed at the people blocking Yen Bugui. But the voice was a bit strange, cruel and emotionless. It was a bit scary. But he clearly still had an impression of Yen Bugui. He still recognizes me, he still recognizes me. Yen Bugui was a little excited as he separated the few people and ran towards them. Man Hu and the others looked at each other, but just as Yen Bugui approached, Yen Juexing suddenly fell to the ground. Yen Bugui screamed and helped his son up from the ground. The sword-drawing event came as scheduled. Hat Island had never been so lively before. More than half of the experts in the Chinese cultivation world had gathered. Even if they were not experts, there were still many who came to watch the show. Most of them came with huge amounts of money. The prices of various industries on Hat Island soared, and all the shops could be said to have made a lot of money. Wu Clan spent a few days on Hat Island to flatten a small hill to be used as the venue for the sword-drawing event. The other 3 clans also urgently recruited many people to help. A brand new square was brazenly presented, and around the square were built sheds for resting. Of course, because there were too many people, it was impossible for everyone to have a place. Those who could have a place to rest in the sheds were those who were ranked at the top of their sects, or some famous experts in the cultivation world. The 4 great clans were so willing to help Yu Qianqiu, and it immediately made the cultivation world have a new understanding of the relationship between Yu Qianqiu and the 4 great clans. Festive. At this time, this newly built square could only be described as festive. It was crowded with people, the sound of firecrackers crackling everywhere, and red silk cloth was hanging everywhere. The 4 great clans were sweating profusely. They did not know what Yu Qianqiu was thinking. He insisted on sending people to the secular world to purchase a large number of firecrackers and red cloth, saying that it was an auspicious opening, and that it was an auspicious opening. When did the cultivation world play this trick? It was too vulgar. The most terrible thing was that Yu Qianqiu also asked the people from the 4 great clans to come out to show their faces. Everyone had a big red cloth hanging diagonally, and a big red flower pinned on their chest. In fact, Yu Qianqiu originally wanted to invite some people to perform dragon and lion dances. However, this was not popular in this world, and he could not find anyone who understood this industry. Thus, he could only give up on this idea. For a moment, the people from the 4 great clans could be said to be exceptionally conspicuous, attracting everyone's attention. This made the group of old fellows so embarrassed that they really wanted to hide in the sheds and not come out. However, there were many people with high statuses in the cultivation world, so they had to come out to greet them. They could only force a smile and come out to welcome the guests. Although this was unconventional, it had to be said that the atmosphere was really different. It was really festive, and there was less of the oppressive atmosphere of competition. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was wearing a red ribbon with a big red flower pinned on his chest. He wandered around the square, warmly cupping his hands in front of his face, and beaming with joy when he saw people. Whether they knew each other or not, he could not stop smiling. Chapter 371. This sect should be able to fork out 100 million, This sect should not be too poor, Corpse sect, a big sect, rich. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the others pointing at him. He happily wandered around. In truth, he was looking around to see what kind of people had come. He had caused such a huge commotion, and he was already prepared to rake in 2 billion high-grade spirit stones. Looking around, he slowly felt that 2 billion spirit stones wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, he laughed even more happily. Even if he saw a disciple from a small sect, he would be the first to greet him with a warm, good, good, good. All the disciples who met him were flattered and praised him in their hearts. No wonder he could make such a big name in the cultivation world. He was amiable and didn't put on any airs. Just this point alone showed that ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to him. It seemed that the words of scum and madman were just rumors. Rumors did a lot of harm, so they couldn't be easily believed. Therefore, many disciples from various sects secretly made up their minds to treat Yu Qianqiu's way of dealing with people as a role model in the future. Wu Sihai's gaze always followed Yu Qianqiu, who was wandering around. To be honest, Wu Sihai was really afraid of this guy. Experience told him that wherever this guy went, there would be trouble. This rule was almost 100% proven. Wu Sihai looked around. He had a faint premonition that something bad would happen at the saber drawing conference. That guy was a jinx. Brother Yu. Laughter came. Yu Qianqiu looked back and saw that it was Qiu Wuyuan. He also smiled and cupped his hands. Senior Qiu. Brother, you are too polite. Qiu Wuyuan laughed. I have never seen someone as generous as you in the cultivation world. You are actually willing to take out the 2 treasures in your hands to choose a master. Rare, rare. Why does this sound a little weird? Are you doubting my sincerity? Yu Qianqiu felt disgusted in his heart, but on the surface, he was still polite and modest. You flatter me. Qiu Wuyuan smiled and stroked his beard. He looked around sneakily and suddenly said, Brother, you don't have to hide it from me. Is there any trick to getting these 2 treasures? Otherwise, how could Luo Qingtian's cultivation be weaker than yours? To be honest, I like these 2 treasures very much. If you are lacking in spirit stones, why don't you tell me? I will make the decision. The 10,000 demons will give you 200 million high-grade spirit stones. F*CK. You want to exchange 200 million for my 2 billion, and you still want to take it away? Yu Qianqiu's expression instantly turned serious, and he solemnly said, Senior Qiu, I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been upright and aboveboard. Besides, I'm not doing this for money. Senior, please help yourself. I will go and see how the preparations are going. He didn't want to be entangled with him, so he turned around and left. Qiu Wuyuan was stunned, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It would be strange if you're not doing this for money. Do you really think everyone in the world is a fool? Everyone knows that you are relying on the sharpness of the treasures to get spirit stones empty-handed. How dare you say that you're not doing this for money? Sigh. It seems that the price is too low, and this kid doesn't want it. Yu Qianqiu, who was in a bad mood, walked to the temporary stage and asked Wu Sihai, Can we start? Let's wait for a while. Wu Sihai gestured to the empty tent on the left. Yu Qianqiu looked at the 10,000 demons on the right, and then looked at the empty seat on the left. Needless to say, who else could it be other than the Fuxian Island? He sighed and didn't know what to say. The so-called number 1 sect in the world, the Fuxian Island, should be more impressive. Their appearance was always the finale. While they were waiting, a group of people from supporting Immortal Island arrived. The one leading them was actually the Cultivation Pavilion's Sihai. Behind him were more than a dozen top-notch experts from the Cultivation Pavilion, including Dongfang Changao. Most of these people knew Yu Qianqiu. When they saw Yu Qianqiu on the stage, they were all stunned. Sihai shook his head and sighed. He led the group of people to their seats. Everyone quieted down. They knew that once the people from the Fuxian Island arrived, it would start. They all looked at the stage. You can start, Wu Sihai said to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Wu Sihai faced the crowd and said in a clear voice, Everyone, there is no need to explain the rules of the saber drawing assembly. I believe that everyone has seen the notice posted outside. Those who are willing to participate, please come up and pay the spirit stones. There will be 2 people in a group. Zi and Wu Lixue, who were wearing red ribbons and big red flowers, walked out from the backstage. Yu Qianqiu had asked the 2 of them to be in charge of collecting the spirit stones. When the 2 beauties appeared on the stage, they attracted a lot of attention. However, most of the people in the tent were looking around. No sect or person came out first. The small sects were too embarrassed to come out first. They were afraid of offending the big sections. The big sects, on the other hand, put on airs. This was probably the demeanor of the big sects. After waiting for a long time, everyone was still looking at each other. No one came out. They had already come, so what was the point of putting on airs? It was simply a waste of time. 1 minute was 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and jumped off the stage. As he walked, he pulled out a big black machete from his storage bag. His movements were neat and tidy. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on the 2 machetes. The calm atmosphere in the field was suddenly broken. Everyone was a little eager to try. In the center of the field were 2 black circles with a diameter of 2 meters. There was a distance of 3 meters between them. They were 2 black iron discs buried deep in the ground. Before Yu Qianqiu reached the center, the 2 machetes in his hands were thrown into the air. The 2 machetes fell from the air and stabbed into the center of the discs. The 2 machetes were about 2/3 of the way into the discs. Just the sharpness of the machetes, which cut through the black iron like tofu, made everyone gasp in surprise. No wonder even the sword of the Daluo sect master was cut in half. Just this sharpness alone is not something ordinary magic weapons can compare to. Someone discussed. The Daluo sect was not absent among the sections. When they heard this, their expressions changed. Yu Qianqiu walked to the center of the 2 machetes, looked around, and said in a clear voice, "These 2 treasured machetes are here. If no one comes to participate in 2 hours, then I, Yu Qianqiu, will personally pull out these 2 machetes and end this conference. The rules of the saber drawing conference do not stipulate that I cannot personally participate. However, after this, no one should say that I, Yu Qianqiu, did not keep his promise." These words were spoken with a resoluteness that left no room for doubt. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked back to the stage with a gloomy face under everyone's gaze. From beginning to end, there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. Wu Sihai looked at the returning Yu Qianqiu with a look of approval. Then, he looked at his granddaughter, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This time, the crowd could not sit still. Almost all the people in front of the tents from the sects stood up with storage bags in their hands. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Let me, 10,000 demons, take the lead." A figure flashed out. It was Qiu Weiyuan. However, almost as soon as he appeared, his old rival, Dongfang Chang Ao, flashed out and stood beside him. He said proudly, "Since Brother Qiu is personally going, how can I, Dongfang Chang Ao, not accompany you?" Chapter 372. Everyone present was used to it. These 2 people represented the top sects of the Orthodox and Devil sections. As long as one of them appeared, the other would definitely come out to fight. If it was another sect that appeared first, it would be better. However, when the 10,000 demons appeared first, how could Dongfang Chang Ao, who represented supporting Xian Island, sit back and do nothing? The 2 of them were at loggerheads again. The people from the other sects shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They returned to their positions. It was better not to get involved in the affairs of these 2 guys. The 2 of them looked at each other from the corner of their eyes. They snorted coldly at the same time and turned their heads to the side. At this moment, one person from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons each held a storage bag and went up to the stage to pay the spirit stones for the 2 of them. Zi and Wu Lishua took the storage bag and quickly injected their divine senses into it to count. It was the first time for the 2 women to personally handle so many spirit stones. This was all thanks to Yu Qianqiu. Wu Lishua looked a little excited, while Zi looked solemn. She thought that these spirit stones were related to the great trust of Senior Bai. After counting, the 2 of them nodded to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and a kind smile appeared on his face. He turned to Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan below and rubbed his hands. Then, he raised his hand and said, "I wish the 2 seniors victory in advance. You may begin." There was a table in the middle of the stage with an hourglass on it. Wu Liqing came out and turned the hourglass upside down. The fine sand flowed backwards. There was only a moment, but this moment was worth tens of millions of spirit stones. Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan did not dare to waste any more time. Their figures flashed, turning into 2 afterimages that appeared in front of the 2 sabers in the blink of an eye. The people from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons could not sit still anymore. They all stood up and stared at the 2 of them without blinking. It should be known that Luo Qingtian's cultivation was not weaker than the 2 of them. In the end, he still ended up losing an arm to save his life. Because these 2 people had been representing the number 1 sect of the righteous path and devil path for a long time, no one could show weakness. The people from both sects looked at the 2 of them with a bit of holiness in their eyes. The people from the various sects also held their breaths and focused, paying attention to the changes that would occur when they drew their swords, so that they could use it when their side went up. "Seniors, please be careful. These two treasured sabers have already developed a spirit of their own. When I was subduing them, I spent a lot of time and effort. If you don't have the confidence, don't force yourself. Otherwise, the backlash from these two treasured sabers is not something an ordinary person can withstand. Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted. Hearing that, all the sects looked at Yu Qianqiu and cursed him in their hearts. Why didn't you say it earlier or later? Why did you wait until the other party paid up? Aren't you just trying to scare them? However, when they thought about how he said that these treasured sabers had developed a spirit of their own, their bodies trembled, and the words, spiritual treasure, appeared in their minds. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan did not notice anything wrong with the sabers in front of them. They looked at each other tacitly and reached out to grab the sabers with solemn expressions. The group of people who were watching also had their hearts in their throats, especially the people from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons. Buzz. The two sabers suddenly let out two sounds of their own. Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan's expressions immediately changed. A bone-chilling coldness instantly emanated from the sabers, directly resisting the approaching hands. Then, a ruthless and cold aura of death pressed on. The two of them immediately felt a little dazed, and their bodies became a little weak. Something's wrong. Someone exclaimed. Everyone also realized that something was wrong. The two of them were sent out by the number 1 sect of the Righteous Path and Devil Path to keep up appearances, so it was needless to say that their ability to respond to emergencies was extraordinary. After feeling that something was wrong, they subconsciously bit the tip of their tongues, and the pain woke them up. They both retreated, and in a flash, they were more than 10 meters away. Their faces were full of shock as they shouted, "Good sabers!" Everyone immediately stood up. Luo Qingtian had lost an arm to save his life, and Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan could not even get close to it. The 3 tribulation passing stage experts' attempts had confirmed the power of this saber without a doubt. Many people's gazes towards the Daluo sect had changed. They were no longer looking at the Daluo sect with mockery. Instead, there was a hint of admiration in their eyes. Luo Qingtian, Dongfang Cheng, Hao, and Xiao Wuyuan were all cultivators who had advanced to the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. Although the former had lost an arm, he had once held this saber, and the latter too could not get close to it. From this, it could be seen that the Daluo sect leader was indeed not someone ordinary people could compare to. He truly lived up to his reputation. When the people from the Daluo sect felt everyone's gazes, their faces showed a little bit of pride. It was as if they were saying, "Now you know." It's not that the Daluo sect is weak, but that these two magic treasures are really powerful. At this moment, Dongfang Cheng, Hao and Xiao Wuyuan released their aura shields at almost the same time. Just as they were about to draw their sabers again, they suddenly heard a dang 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 sound coming from the main platform. The two of them turned around and saw that Yu Qianqiu was holding a gong in his hand. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the hourglass with the gong in his other hand and said with a smile, "Seniors, I'm sorry, time is up. It's time for the next group to go up. Please step down for the time being." Time was up so soon. 10 million high-grade spirit stones were gone just like that. Not to mention the two people who drew their sabers, everyone's eyes were focused on the hourglass. They were deeply suspicious of the hourglass's effect. In fact, they had wronged Yu Qianqiu in this matter. It was just that everyone was so engrossed in the competition that they forgot about the time. Although Yu Qianqiu had the idea of tampering with the hourglass, he was worried that there were too many people present and was afraid that he would be exposed, so he dismissed the idea. Dongfang Cheng, Ao was stunned, while Xiao Wuyuan was furious. Yu Qianqiu ignored them and shouted, "In order to save time, we will arrange the matches according to the order in which the spirit stones are paid. Those who pay first will go up first." Wu Sihai frowned when he heard that. Even if they wanted to earn money, they didn't have to do it so blatantly. He couldn't say anything, so he quietly retreated backstage. If he continued to stand in front of the stage, he really couldn't afford to lose face. On the other hand, his granddaughter, Wu Lixue, looked at the various sects with excitement. There was a lot of money to collect. The various sects were speechless. Although they knew that Yu Qianqiu was obviously trying to get money, who would give up? Wasn't everyone here for the treasure? However, this Yu Qianqiu was really good at messing around. If others had such a treasure, they would hide it, but he took it out openly to cause trouble, making it inconvenient for those who wanted to steal the treasure. They could only wait until he was alone in the future. Dongfang Cheng Ao and Qiu Wuyuan did not return after a long time. The sects that the two belonged to immediately understood that they wanted to try again. Immediately, the two sects brought a storage bag to the stage and paid another sum of spirit stones for them. Yu Qianqiu waited for the two ladies to confirm the amount, then smiled at the two who did not go up. Seniors, please continue. Wu Licheng, who was below the stage, turned the hourglass upside down. This guy is too practical. Dongfang Cheng and Qiu Wuyuan's expressions twitched. They did not want to argue with this greedy guy now to avoid wasting time. The vigor shield on their bodies became brighter and brighter, and they flashed in front of the two swords. Just as everyone was staring at them, they suddenly saw the two of them raise their heads to look at the sky. Then, they quickly retreated. Swoosh! A cold light shot down from the sky, and with a bang, a large hole was blasted in between the two swords. A wave of air spread to the surroundings, and a flying sword flew out from the hole, turning into a cold light and shooting back into the sky. Many people immediately flashed out from the sheds around them. They looked up into the sky, and saw a flying instrument slowly descending under the crowd's gaze. F***CK. Someone is causing trouble. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows, turned around, took the 4 storage bags from Zi and Wu Lixue, and threw them into his own storage bag. Just as he was about to go over to take a look, he saw more than 10 figures flashing out from behind him, and he stopped. Although he was angry that someone was disturbing him while he was making money, those who dared to cause trouble in such an occasion were not ordinary people. He decided to take a look first. How dare you? Who dares to cause trouble here? Qiu Wuyuan stared at the sky and shouted loudly. More than 10 experts from the 10,000 demons stood behind him, and all of them were staring at the sky like tigers watching their prey. The domineering aura of the Devil Dao was undoubtedly revealed. The flying instrument was suddenly taken away by someone in midair, and 8 figures landed in front of the crowd. Almost everyone knew the person in the lead. It was the original young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Zhuixing. And many of the 7 people behind him had met them before. They were Imperial Advisor Di Rong and Man Hu's senior and junior brothers. Greetings Martial Uncle Qiu, greetings Martial Uncles of the 10,000 demons. Yan Zhuixing courteously bowed to the 10,000 demons. The 10 people from the 10,000 demons were instantly discouraged, and they looked at each other in dismay. The domineering aura they had at the beginning was nowhere to be seen. Qiu Wuyuan looked around awkwardly, and said in a muffled voice, "What are you doing here?" The previous leader of the 10,000 demons, the grandson of his master, came to cause trouble. What else could he say? If you don't have the confidence, then get out of the way. Dongfang Cheng Ao sneered at Qiu Wuyuan rudely. These two people would not let go of any opportunity to mock each other. Qiu Wuyuan glared, but when he saw Yan Zhuixing beside him, he immediately shut his mouth speechlessly. Yan Zhuixing, are you declaring war on the Chinese cultivation world? Dongfang Cheng Ao snorted coldly, a golden spear appearing in his hands at some point in time. Senior Dongfang, you misunderstood. I heard that there is a saber drawing conference here, so I specially rushed here overnight to participate. I definitely have no other intentions. Yan Zhuixing smiled gently. You are not welcome here, please leave. Dongfang Cheng Ao held the golden origin treasure spear horizontally in his hand, and behind him stood a dozen experts from the cultivation pavilion of Fuxin Island. Yes, you are not welcome here, go back. A group of people followed and jeered. Yan Zhuixing turned a blind eye to them and smiled faintly. I heard that anyone can participate in this saber drawing conference as long as they can fork out 10 million upper-grade spirit stones. I wonder if Brother Yu, who is organizing this conference, is here. He looked around the crowd, and after a while, his eyes met with Yu Qianzhou's. Their eyes met and did not separate for a long time. Everyone in the cultivation world knew about the grudge between them. If not for Yu Qianzhou, the Yan father and son would not have been forced to flee overseas. Haha. So it's brother Yan, long time no see. Yu Qianzhou jumped down from the stage and walked over. He cupped his fists and smiled from afar, as if he was an old friend who had not seen each other for a long time. Ze also felt that something was wrong and quickly followed behind him. Wu Lixue also did not want to be left behind. The crowd parted to let them in. Yan Juexing also smiled and cupped his fists. Indeed, long time no see. I have been sending people everywhere to ask about brother Yu, but unfortunately, there has been no news. I finally see you today. Chapter 373. What good can you have for me? It's good that you don't fight with me. Yu Qianzhou touched his nose, and they looked at each other silently for a while. Suddenly, they laughed together. When they laughed, their eyes were still entangled with each other. Yu Qianzhou found that there was something missing in Yan Juexing's eyes. In the past, he could at least see some pretentious hypocrisy in it, but now, it was really cold. His eyes were unbelievably calm, as if they were carved out of ice. There was no emotion in them. Although he was smiling, his eyes were incompatible with his whole person. There was only indifference in his eyes that could not be concealed even if he wanted to. Yan Juexing also saw something from Yu Qianzhou's eyes. It was the sincerity and enthusiasm of meeting an old friend. However, Yan Juexing would not believe that a person who could make up a story to frame him would welcome him sincerely and enthusiastically. Yan Juexing looked away and glanced at the women on the left and right of Yu Qianzhou. He did not know Ze, so he just glanced over her. However, when his eyes fell on Wu Lixue, his cold and ruthless eyes actually showed signs of melting. He cupped his hands and said, "Miss Wu is also here. I didn't expect you to be even more beautiful than before. I don't know if you still remember me." As soon as he said this, the 7 brothers behind him exchanged a surprised look. They seemed to feel that it was a little unbelievable. Although Wu Lixue knew that Yan Juexing had a grudge with her man, it would be strange for a woman to be unhappy when someone praised her beauty. She smiled and nodded, but she did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Yu Qianzhou with a gentle gaze. At this time, Yan Juexing noticed that the man and the 2 women in front of him were wearing red flowers, which was quite a happy life. The smile on his face suddenly froze. He pointed at the big red flowers on the 3 people and said, "Brother Yu, what are you doing? Could it be that I came coincidentally to run into Brother Yu's happy event?" Yu Qianzhou followed his finger and looked at the flower on his chest. He quickly denied, No, it's just to add to the atmosphere of the sword-drawing event." As he spoke, he pointed at the red hanging in the surroundings. Yan Juexing looked over and realized that not only Yu Qianzhou and the other 2 were dressed like this, but many others were also dressed like this. He immediately stopped thinking about this matter and asked, "Brother Yu, I heard that this saber-drawing competition is held for the entire cultivation world. Anyone who can fork out 10 million upper-grade spirit stones can participate. But now someone wants to drive me away. I wonder what Brother Yu, the organizer, will say." He. In the past, he was so poor that he had to resort to robbery, but now he seemed to be rich. Yu Qianzhou rubbed his nose and glanced at the surrounding sections. He saw that everyone was staring at him. Their intentions were clear. They wanted him to get to know everyone. He. That. I, Yu Qianzhou, have always been a man of my words, but... Yu Qianzhou looked around and said, "There are no more seats here." He wanted to earn money now, but in front of all the sects, he could not blatantly go against them. He rejected them very tactfully. "It's fine. I don't dare to hope for a seat here. We can just find a place to stand." Yan Juexing said indifferently. Dongfang Cheng Ao snorted and said, "I already said that you are not welcome here. With Dongfang Cheng Ao taking the lead, all the sects immediately followed and jeered, "Get lost. You are not welcome here." Yan Zhuixing glanced at everyone coldly. Man who was behind him, walked forward and laughed. "Why are you in such a hurry to drive us away? Could it be that there is no one in the cultivation world in China who can pull out this saber? Are you afraid that we will steal the limelight?" A few of his fellow disciples laughed together. With the cultivation of the 7 of them at the end of the tribulation passing stage, they were confident that no one present could trouble them, so they were arrogant. When the various sects heard this, their faces were already filled with anger. They might make a move at any time. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to ruin his business at this moment. He pointed at the big hole in front of him and smiled bitterly to Yan Zhuixing. "Brother Yan, I wonder which one of you made a move and destroyed this place." The 7th of the 7 man who brothers stood out and patted his chest. "I saw that it was so lively down there, so I couldn't help but make a move." His arrogant look seemed to be saying, "I did it, what can you do?" Yu Qianqiu couldn't be bothered with him and complained to Yan Zhuixing, "In order to rent this place, I paid 10 million high-grade spirit stones to the Wu clan as a guarantee. The moment you came, you want me to lose 10 million. What kind of logic is this? Forget it. Brother Yan and I are friends, so I will pay for it. Brother Yan better find a place to rest outside." Yan Zhuixing naturally understood the meaning behind his words. "I paid 10 million for you the moment you came, and you still have the nerve to make things difficult for me?" Old Seven's eyes widened as he stared at the hole and shouted, "Nonsense. It won't cost more than 10 million to build this rundown place. Brother Yan, is this your subordinate? Why is he scolding me in front of my face?" Yu Qianqiu's voice sank. He turned his head and said, "Ze, make him shut up." He believed that even if Ze couldn't gain the upper hand, she would be able to scare the other party into being obedient. Otherwise, that soul formation stage father would be for nothing. Ze's expression changed at the mention of money because of Yu Qianqiu. She knew that there must be a motive for Yu Qianqiu to suddenly take out 10 million. Hearing that, she didn't say anything else. A purple shadow appeared and rushed at 7th brother. The speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. Everyone present was shocked. Old 7 immediately felt that something was wrong. He teleported into the air. Who would have thought that while the purple shadow was still below, another purple shadow appeared in front of him. Immediately after, a loud sound rang out in his face. He didn't know what happened, but he was slapped by someone. Don't look at this slap because it was from a woman. The strength of the slap was so strong that it made old 7's ears ring. The people below were speechless. A late-stage tribulation transcendence stage cultivator was actually slapped so easily. "Stop!" The 6 Marshall brothers shouted at the same time. They teleported to mid-air and immediately stopped the purple shadow. Who knew that the purple shadow was like a shadow among the 7 of them? It had obviously stopped her, but it appeared behind her again. It kept chasing after Lao Qi like a shadow, slapping her face again and again. It was so loud that it sounded like a slap after slap. Not only were the people on the ground stunned, but the 7 people in the sky were even more shocked. Although the opponent's movement technique was similar to teleportation consumed a lot of true essence, so it was impossible to use it so wantonly. Only deity transformation stage cultivators would be able to withstand such consumption, but ordinary deity transformation stage cultivators wouldn't dare to use it too much. Pa pa pa. The sound of slapping came from the air, one after another. After a total of 20 slaps, a purple shadow flashed among the 7 people and returned to Yu Qianqiu's side. Her pretty face was still cold. The people who were closer to her subconsciously took a step back. This woman was too terrifying. Yu Qianqiu smacked his lips and couldn't say anything. "Wow. I picked up a treasure. Old man Bai has good taste." Yan Zhuixing's expression changed. He thought that he would be able to intimidate everyone by bringing 7 late-stage tribulation transcendence stage cultivators. He didn't expect that he would be beaten up by a woman as soon as he appeared. 7 late-stage tribulation transcendence stage cultivators. She fought as she pleased, and no one could stop her. This. Wu Lishua looked at Ziyi dumbfounded. She had been with Ziyi for a few days and knew that Ziyi's cultivation was high, but she didn't expect it to be so powerful. No wonder her man brought her along every day. Thinking of this, Wu Lishua was a little discouraged. It seemed that she couldn't help Yu Qianshou with her cultivation. Supporting Immortal's island, 10,000 demons, and the people from other sects looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianshou. They couldn't figure out how this guy got such a powerful woman by his side. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also obedient to him. The 7 people in the air were stunned. Old Seven's face was swollen like a pig's head, but he immediately used his power to reduce the swelling. The 7 people flashed back to Yan Zhuixing's side. Man Hu stepped forward and stared at Ziyi. We are not as skilled as you, so we have nothing to say. May I ask if you use the great art of shifting position? Ziyi's cold expression changed slightly. She looked at Man Hu in surprise. She didn't expect someone to recognize that she used the great art of shifting position, but she didn't reply. Yu Qianshou also glanced at her. He remembered that when they were in the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, the handsome old man Nongzhu seemed to have told her to use the form displacement transposition art to escape. Seeing that she didn't speak, Man Hu cupped his fists and said, "It must be the great art of shifting position." In this world, besides Mr. Nongzhu's great art of shifting position, there is no other movement technique that is so mysterious. May I know how to address you and Mr. Nongzhu? Although the people present weren't the top experts of their respective sects, they still had extraordinary experience. However, they had never heard of the great art of form displacement transposition and Mr. Nongzhu mentioned by Man Hu. They looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianshou blankly. There was no time for them to interrupt. Ziyi's powerful appearance deprived them of the right to speak. Ziyi still didn't answer, but Man Hu wasn't unhappy at all. He sized her up for a moment, then suddenly nodded and said, "Just now, I heard the famous Yu Qianshou of the cultivation world call young lady Ziyi. Young lady is also wearing purple clothes, so it shouldn't be wrong. It is said that Mr. Nongzhu of the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea has a female disciple named Ziyi, and she likes to wear purple clothes. I think he is talking about you. You know my master?" Ziyi couldn't help but ask when she saw that he was speaking logically. However, this was also equivalent to telling everyone about her background. "So it really is Miss Ziyi." Man Hu nodded and said with a smile, "Miss Ziyi has never asked about secular affairs. Why are you here? Is it possible that Mr. Nongzhu is also here? If he is really here, I hope you can introduce us to him. The 7 of us have heard of your name for a long time, and we look forward to meeting you." As he said this, he subconsciously looked around, and the other 6 people did the same. All the sects muttered to themselves, "Who is this Mr. Nongzhu? These 7 people seem to be afraid of him. What kind of person can make 7 experts at the late stage of the crossing calamity stage afraid of him?" "He didn't come," Ziyi replied coldly. At first, she was a little worried that she had hit her master's friend, but now that she knew that these 7 people didn't know her master, and only heard of him, her face became cold again. Hearing this, Man Hu and the others seemed to be relieved. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.